case study on how Frank Blake, CEO of Home Depot, was able to pivot Home Depot's leadership model. It is important, before diving into why Frank Blake is a great leader, to first look at his history and where he came from. He grew up on the East Coast in Boston, Massachusetts. He had a rich education as he studied at Harvard and then went on to earn his law degree from Columbia. He began in the field of law, working for the government, serving Supreme Court Justice Stevens, then as counsel to President Reagan and President H.W. Bush, as well as the U.S. Environment Protective Agency. He eventually moved away from the government and into the public sector, working for General Electric. He finally moved to Home Depot, where he first ran business development and corporate operations before being promoted to CEO. To really get a feel for the huge impact Blake's leadership has, we must first understand the company he worked for, as this greatly impacts how we view his leadership in this case study. Home Depot was founded in 1978 by Bernie Marcus and Arthur Blank, on the premise that customers come first. Over the years, their store expanded into 2,200 retail locations with more than 500,000 employees, becoming the world's largest home improvement retailer. As CEO, Blake focused on three main things: putting his people first, remaining customer-focused, and staying connected. The customers are the most important people in the organization, so naturally, he believes focus should be put on those closest to them, his associates. He strives to not only get feedback from his associates on how they are doing, but also tries to stay connected to them by visiting their stores personally. There were a few problems when Blake came into the role of CEO. Most notably, a recession was beginning to take place. Blake also expressed concern of his role as CEO due to his lack of retail experience. We must remember, he is a lawyer by trade. And finally, he took over the role from a man he had worked with not only at Home Depot, but a man who was his former colleague at General Electric. All of these problems take the right leader to effectively overcome. To be an effective leader and decision maker, we must turn away from the idea of a hierarchy and begin to look at our organizations from a holarchy perspective, where leadership is there to serve the employees and the customers. By changing the way we're viewing an organization, we can also begin to change the way we are making decisions. An organization is typically arranged as a hierarchy, meaning leadership is at the top of the organizational chart, followed by managers, employees, and then customers. When viewing an organization as a hierarchy, we are viewing it as those at the bottom of the hierarchy serving the top. When we flip this model to a holarchy point of view, we now see how leaders should be serving those doing the work, as well as their customers who drive their success. From this viewpoint, we begin to understand how leadership is not isolated on its own at the top of the hierarchy, but instead how each holon of the system works together and affects one another. Leadership should understand how the decisions affect the throughputs of the entire system. For Blake, he began his role as CEO believing that he was there to make decisions. One day, a colleague came in and explained to him how the organization worked much like cogs in a wheel, and how his decisions affected the entire organization. The colleague mentioned how he should be putting more focus onto the smaller cogs, i.e. the employees, because although they're small, if they stop working, the whole organization will begin to crumble. This led to an aha moment for Blake as he quickly realized he was not making decisions based on who they mattered to most. By flipping his viewpoint from a hierarchy to a holarchy, he was able to see how using a decision-making model like the Hoyt-Harder model was beneficial. Through the Hoyt-Harder model, Blake could understand further which members were key to each decision he was making. He began seeking out advice from those closest to the customers before making decisions that affected his customer base. It is imperative to collect the sufficient input and data before making decisions. By involving the right people, he was able to collect better data for each scenario, which in turn leads to making better decisions. In transformational leadership, a leader pays attention to their followers through individualized consideration. Leaders provide support and listen while assisting followers with their goals. Through transformational leadership, leaders create an environment where employees are inspired and motivated to go beyond what they think they are capable of. One way Blake uses transformational leadership is by visiting the Home Depot stores. When he visits, he will take time to talk with associates and even take photos. He will then post these photos on his Twitter account, which is a creative way for him to use his celebrity status to recognize employees and improve their job satisfaction. Another way Blake shows transformational leadership is by writing thank you cards to his employees on a regular basis. By focusing on transformational leadership, Blake is further able to put the focus on his customers and associates, and therefore will continue to make decisions based on what will better motivate them and inspire them. Blake's leadership goes beyond Home Depot. The company itself has an impressive 1 billion transactions each year. When Blake took over in 2011, there was room to improve some of his numbers. By 2015, Blake was able to increase Home Depot's price per share from $35 to $115 and increase their ROI, or return on investment, from 22% to 57%. While these numbers simply reflect internal improvements, we must remember the ripple effect. If numbers are improving within Home Depot, customers are also feeling more satisfied with this organization. Blake's leadership goes beyond the stores as he inspires his workforce through satisfied careers, which extend out to satisfied lifestyles. His leadership improves the economy and the towns where his stores are located. Overall, Blake's leadership style and decision-making has gone far beyond the Orange Box store as he now appears in podcasts, articles on leadership, and much more.